Okay. Hi, Michael and Sebastien. Good to have you both here. We are going to give it a few minutes to get started as people are signing in and joining the conversation. How are you both doing?
I'm good. It's a scorching 108-degree day in Austin as normal, and I'm sheltering in peace from the heat.
Sheltering in peace. That's good. That's good. Thanks, Aseem, Sebastien. Great to be with you guys. I'm actually coming to you guys from Maine, where we're having the opposite problem. It's kind of chilly at night, so I'm wearing a sweater now, which is a nice change of pace from the Nashville heat.
All my sweaters are in a box in my closet right now.
That's perfect. So I'm going to give it a few minutes as people are joining in. I see the numbers climbing up as we roll into this. It's just around 9 a.m. Pacific here in California, and as you can hear, our guests are in different time zones. We'll, I'm sure, have attendees from multiple time zones and a few different countries as well. So we'll keep it live. We'll keep it fast flowing. We'll keep it interesting. I think the topic is going to be of high interest for not just the folks that are joining us today over here, but we're going to share this afterwards as well, and share recordings both on the RevGenius platform as well as on Immersa.ai, as well as through our LinkedIn and social promotions. So you'll hear a lot more about this over the airwaves, so to speak, over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so here's some rules for the road today. So we are going to absolutely encourage our audience to ask questions, to participate, to jump in. My first question to the audience, as you are signing in, please introduce yourselves. Karima is going to be your online host, so she is going to be jumping in and prompting you with questions to engage the audience and bring more of the energy out here with the panelists. So feel free to just start by introducing yourselves online and where you're dialed in from. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so while that's going on, let's do introductions with the panelists. So I will be your host today. My name is Aseem Chandra. I am the founder and CEO of Immersa. We're building a data platform for RevOps teams, and our intention goal is to bring together RevOps communities together around what we're building with Immersa, to essentially bring product data together with a variety of different data sources in the enterprise and help drive improvements in your sales and customer success outcomes. So with that, I will first ask Sebastien to introduce himself. Sebastien, go.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Sebastien. I will pronounce my last name once for everyone to hear. It's Van Heyningen. I am the president of Central Metric. We are a revenue operations consulting agency. So think of us like your CRO, your CRM specialist, and every admin in between. I think the simplest way to put what we do is that all of the technology and process that you use to get somebody from never heard about you to a current and active client, we help with that technology and that process.
Yeah. Thank you, Sebastien. It's a pleasure to reconnect with you. And we, Immersa and Central Metric, have partnered over the last year or so as we work together at several accounts.
Heart hands for Immersa.
Thank you, and likewise. And Michael, go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Aseem. So my name is Michael Cavopol. I'm an operator specializing in B2B SaaS. Currently, I'm the Vice President of Customer Success and Partnerships at FreshTech. And FreshTech is building technology to serve the restaurant industry now that so much technology has made it into that space for the last couple of years. So we're right now focused on kind of technology in the kitchen, but really interested in all things tech in restaurants.
Very cool. And Michael is also one of our early adopter customers at Immersa. So we're very grateful, Michael, for that partnership, and absolutely value the feedback that you've shared with us as we build this platform together with your team. So let me go ahead and get started into the conversation. I do want to acknowledge Melissa Lee, who was intending to join us today for this conversation. She is currently at runs RevOps at GitHub. Absolutely a dynamo. Unfortunately, she had a last-minute family situation come up and will be unable to join us. So we will have her here in a future event. So today we're going to talk about the dreaded R word, recession. Are we in a recession or are we not? And let's maybe start there. Now, the traditional definition, of course, is that if you have 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, then that implies that the country is in a recession. That definition has held up pretty consistently over many, many, many decades. There is, of course, now debate on whether that is in fact true, because if you look at any of the other metrics in terms of job growth or spending from a consumer standpoint or housing or inflation, then those numbers are not necessarily true, although they're starting to trend in the negative direction. But regardless, let's first get the opinion here from the panelists. If you are online and watching this, we would love to hear your thoughts. As a consumer, as an observer of what goes on around you, do you feel like we're in a recession as a country? Let's maybe start there. So panelists, let's start with you, Sebastien, and then if you're online, please go ahead and share your perspective on the chat session here.
Yeah, I'll take the first shot here. And I think as somebody who has an undergraduate degree in economics, I am so very qualified to answer this question. But on a serious note, I think that over the last few years, there's been like almost a reckoning that these leading economic data points are not completely connected to the day-to-day that people are experiencing. You see, presidents brag about job growth, but wages are stagnant and job participation and labor participation is low. And so, I don't know if the structural definition of a recession has been met, but I have noticed activities from large businesses, venture capital firms, institutional investors that indicate we are at least slowing down. So, investments are lowering in both volume and in amount. And, we're all feeling the pains of inflation. There is, I think everyone here that is fairly active on LinkedIn has seen tons and tons of layoffs. So I think the things that happen around a recession are starting to pop up, but I don't know if we have reached the strict, United States, economic definition of a recession yet.
Yeah. And you know what right? When is the label recession helpful? I think it's 10 years from now when we're trying to understand what happened and, when did the recession begin and when did it end? I think what's really helpful for us in the here and now is to understand, consumer behavior, buyer behavior in the very moment. For me, it's really interesting because the restaurant industry has been in a recession that started during COVID, because as soon as COVID happened, people stopped buying food and going to restaurants. And so, we're 2 years in at this point to this very interesting situation with a lot of forced technology adoption. So I think in that industry, we've been there for a long time. As a consumer, I definitely see the signs. I think Barrett mentioned it in the feed here, right? Like gas, food, rent, all of the indicators of recession are there. If you think about recession as the type of thing which affects your behavior by, spending less, saving more. So I definitely think we're there. And I think the question then is, in whatever industry or business you are, how does that affect you? And then what decisions do you make from there?
Yeah, I think both of you have a pretty unique perspective in the roles that you play in the industry. So Michael, with your company, Fresh Tech, focused on the food services industry, you clearly saw this way back when COVID started in 2020. The entire industry got hit. And Sebastien, from your lens, you're in the middle of the revenue function for a number of different companies. So, you definitely have a point of view there. When you both look at how recession impacts SaaS companies, what are some of the metrics that you look for? And Sebastien, you might be looking at this across a number of different customers that you work with. Michael, your point of view may be specific to Fresh Tech, but I think it'd be very useful to hear both of your perspectives on when you look at a SaaS business, how do you measure the health of the business?
Yeah, I think you're going to hear this from me a lot, but a lot of the things that we need to look at and the things that we need to do in a recession are the same things that a RevOps professional should already be doing. So what metrics matter now? The same metrics that mattered last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You need to make sure you're maximizing the lifetime value of your clients. You need to make sure you're lowering your customer acquisition cost. You need to make sure that you're always evaluating your tech, your people, and your process for areas of improvement and for gaps where you're losing money. So I think it's more of a stricter focus on the metrics that already matter to you rather than coming up with a new set of statistics and metrics to track.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I generally agree with that. I think that in coastal VC, there's been in the last couple of years, I think we've had a really overheated market. I think we've seen people doing huge rounds at crazy valuations, and that has got to stop. Now, I'm in the sometimes fortunate, sometimes unpositioned of being in Nashville, which is kind of the middle of the country. We don't really have access to those markets. And so in Nashville and Chattanooga and maybe, I don't know, Austin, maybe, I'm not super familiar with the area there, Sebastien, but I think it's become really important to build high quality, durable businesses. And when you're talking about those types of businesses, they do stand the test of time, and they are, I don't want to say recession proof, but exactly what Sebastien said, you focus on the same things that you do the rest of the time. And so for me, the two most important metrics, I think, are first, net revenue retention. I think that is super important all the time, but especially during a recession, is making sure you end a period with as much revenue as you started with. The second is this idea of burn multiple. David Sachs at Craft Ventures has been talking about burn multiples a lot with his portfolio companies, but it's basically your net burn divided by your net new ARR. So the idea being, how much are you burning versus how much are you gaining? That doesn't have to be from sales. It can be through upsell and cross-sell, so things that you're doing to add more value to your customer portfolio. But I think burn multiple has been a really, really interesting metric to track. And what Craft are saying is, under 1x is amazing. If you're under 1x, you're basically making more than you're spending and you're profitable. And then over 3x would be concerning and bad. So I think those are some interesting numbers to track.
Yeah, that's a good one, Michael. Burn multiple. I'm going to save that one for later.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out Craft Ventures blog. They've been talking about it a lot. I think it's a really interesting concept for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
It's a really good point in terms of both NRR as well as the burn multiple here, Michael. So maybe double click a little bit more as you've sort of gone through the journey of the past 2+ years at this stage, navigating essentially a recession that originated through COVID in the food tech industry and has continued really without stop until recently. And if anything, perhaps the food tech industry may be due for an upturn. But how has Fresh Tech navigated these waters? Like when you look at your own business, double click below these metrics and tell us a little about how you've sort of navigated these waters and what you've been observing in terms of metrics at the next level down.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the interesting thing for us is at the beginning of COVID, we were a very broadly focused technology company. So we were doing online ordering. We had an online ordering solution. We had a kitchen display solution that was basically a digital ticket printer. And we had ambitions of deploying additional solutions in this space. We actually came out of a hospitality portfolio holding company. So we had other kind of skunkworks projects in the works, and our long-term plan was to keep bringing these kind of small group tested solutions to market and deploy those. That totally changed when COVID started, because what happened in the restaurant industry for COVID was this forced maturation and forced technology adoption, because you had the coastal marketplaces, so Grubhub, Uber Eats, Postmates, et cetera. And they had the leverage to inject technology into this business. And especially in an environment, they were already doing it, right? They didn't start during COVID, they were already there. And when COVID happened, when people were no longer dining in, they had all of the leverage to kind of determine how e-commerce in the food world happened. So that led to a lot of focus, a lot of huge rounds, a lot of investment in the space. So from a technology perspective, it was a really exciting time to be there. From a restaurant perspective, it was really challenging because you had all of these businesses that you didn't really understand trying to gain access to your customer portfolio. So what we did was we got really, really focused on who is our true ICP, who do we really, really deliver value to, and then what are our solutions that add value to that persona and that have a moat. And one of the very first things that we realized is online ordering. There are so many companies that got into the online ordering space. Because it's effectively e-commerce, it's kind of a known entity, because there's the opportunity to process payments, which is such an attractive component. The fintech aspect of hospitality is really, really attractive. And so lots of folks gravitated to online ordering because it was kind of the intersection of fintech and e-commerce. We had a product in that space. We had actually just relaunched a brand new product in the space to replace an old product. But we pivoted away and we're in the process of sunsetting that product right now because we don't have a moat. That product doesn't serve our ideal customer, and it doesn't deliver value with a moat in a way that other products in the market don't. So we've totally shifted our focus away from that very commoditized space to a space that has a lot less attention. We're one of the only players in the space. And I think it's an opportunity for us to add a lot more value. So it's a long answer, but I think the net there is we figured out who is our ideal customer. We figured out how do we deliver the most value to them. And then we stripped away all the distractions to get laser focused on that space.
Yeah.
Seems like a blessing in disguise, Michael.
Yeah.
This is how do you squeeze, how do you squeeze out the juice out of a lemon, make some lemonade? That's the lesson here. But I love the point about leveraging, never let a crisis go to waste. So that's essentially what I'm hearing, what Michael talked about here. You've got the opportunity here to revisit your ICP, to determine who's your target accounts and where you can genuinely add some value, and then identify which of those accounts you're going to service and which product lines you're going to continue to build on, and which ones you're going to move away from. I think really good conversation there, Michael. I'm going to acknowledge a couple of our attendees here who've made some really interesting comments, and then come back to you, Sebastien, for a point of view. As you work across a number of customers, what do you see? So maybe think about that for a moment, and how they're operating in a recessionary environment. But we have Sagar Shukla confirming, a SaaS founder based out of Nashville, confirming your observations about coastal VCs versus the point of view from a middle of the country point of view that you just shared with us. And then Danica makes a really interesting point about what metrics to focus on around churn, NDR or NRR, I think as you just called it, capital efficiency. And I think that the point that really strikes me in her comment is you've got to figure out how to stay alive to get through to the other side of this and extend your runway. And so you have the optionality to fundraise at the appropriate time. It is absolutely the message that we're hearing from our investor as well, is make sure that you have enough runway to get through the other side of this. So I just want to acknowledge those points, really good points coming up from the audience here. So back to you, Sebastien. Tell us a little bit more about what you see from your lens, where you are operating as a RevOps team or a fractional RevOps team for a variety of different clients. What kind of changes, what kind of behaviors have you seen as in how they measure measure their own health of business and navigate through essentially what may potentially be a long recession or short recession or not a recession? No one's really sure.
Yeah. I think Michael laid out the blueprint that I'm seeing as well, which is, the companies that we're working with are putting more effort into efficiency, defining, a few lanes in which to sell rather than several, cutting out products that maybe were great ideas, but, didn't ever come together, and just consolidating. I think of it, I'm definitely not a bodybuilder, but I think of it in terms of, a bodybuilder, there's a bulking time where they're just eating as much as they can, gaining mass. And then there's a cutting time where they're like slimming down, making sure, everything is in the right place, so to speak. And so it's time to cut, basically. It's time to not necessarily shrink the organization, but refocus your resources so you're getting the most out of them. I think internally, I run a consulting agency, and so what we compete against is doing nothing, a full-time hire, and other agencies. And so a climate like this means two of my competitors are out. People are not making full-time hires as much, and doing nothing, you could put your business in danger. And so like both in COVID and now, we have not seen a decrease in demand for consulting services. Quite the opposite, actually. I'm not sure if that's a good sign or a bad sign, because ideally we want to work with businesses that can afford to scale. That's the foundational work that we're doing, is putting things in place so that people can scale their business. But yeah, it's a mixed bag. And one other thing that I've noticed, and I typically work with scaling companies, so seed to Series B, 1 to 25 mil ARR, no slowdown at all that I've noticed. All of these companies are full speed ahead. They're talking to investors. They're getting term sheets. I'd say there is probably going to be a focus more, if there isn't already, on seed to Series A stage companies. These big bloated, 9-figure Series C, Series D deals just are not as attractive anymore. We're still taking chances, but we're not taking huge chances as much. And then the players that are huge, and kind of like Michael said earlier, got those huge valuations a few years ago, those are the ones reducing force. And those are the ones that need to go through this consolidation, rather than this is a nice thing to happen.
Yeah.
So
Great.
I just want to add something to that, really. I mean, Sebastien, I think your metaphor of, kind of the weightlifting example is really, really healthy, because I think if any of us are honest about our businesses, there's always bloat. And this is an opportunity to cut down to the essentials and build back from there. And that's just a healthy exercise to do every once in a while. Yeah.
Exactly. Or your joints will thank you for cutting that weight.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
To keep the metaphor going.
You are now all motivating me to get back to the gym. So get back on the treadmill. That's great. Okay, so I think, and I'm going to encourage the audience to share their perspective and raise questions that you'd like to be asked here. So we want you to actively be part of this conversation. So tell us what you're thinking. Now I'm gonna shift gears a little bit here in terms of kind of from the high level down to the specifics of different parts of the business. So kind of let's look at all of the revenue producing functions, right? So since NRR was brought up both by Michael, Sebastien, yourself, as well as some of the audience members, let's maybe talk about that a little bit. Obviously there's a big push and a focus on retaining existing clients, particularly in a downturn. And it's a good idea no matter what, because you spend a huge amount of effort and resources and money to take a client through their, through the acquisition funnel, acquiring them, converting them over, having them be successful on your product line. That's not the time that you want to lose them. So with that in mind, tell us a little bit about your strategies for improving NRR as you think about, your own business, Sebastien, or the clients that you work with, and Michael, certainly from your perspective at FreshTech.
Sebastien, you want to go first?
Yeah, I would say, broken record. These are things that you should have been doing already, but now you're going to be forced to do them. And I think I don't know what the best way to put this would be, but I think the delivery is, that's the best way to put it. Delivery is your focus. Net new logos, demand gen, all those things are nice. But you hear the stat or the quote, almost every day, that it's more expensive to bring in a new customer than it is to retain an old one. And to the point on runways earlier, those retained customers are going to keep your business alive in the meantime, until you can afford to expand again. And so for us internally at my agency, it has been ripping apart the way that we do work to make it more efficient. How are we liaising with our consultants? How are we letting the client know what work is done? And how are we proving the value? Because as these budgets are decreasing, people are looking for ways to cut. And so that has been my main focus. Rather than bringing in new people to this organization, we've had to double back and decide, is this the best way for us to be doing work, and how can we improve it? Aside from that, we've actually started to say no to projects that kind of stretch our scope a little bit. We play really well in the CRM buyer journey world, and there are things that in the past, in bulking season, if somebody asked me to do it, I would figure out a way. But now that we're in cutting season, I am more likely to turn those deals down because they will stretch our resources. They will cost more than our standard offering. And there's just no scale there. It's just kind of like a Band-Aid on a larger problem. And with our clients, I mean, it's a mixed bag. We have, between 6 to 10 clients at a given time. So I think, depending on the company size, the industry they're serving, how much funding they have, everybody's thinking about it differently. But what I'm seeing is a move away from the typical day-to-day firefighting and more focus on larger strategic projects, because those are the projects that are going to build the next stage of your growth. The investments in automation, augmenting your employees, and kind of increasing the value of every contributor on your team, because you can't necessarily afford to scale that team right now. So yeah, those are some of the things I've seen in a word vomity type of answer.
Yeah, no, I think all of that is right. The mantra that I keep going back to is get obsessed with value delivery. And this is a really scary, sometimes it's a scary thing to do, especially in a recession, because the amygdala hijacking that's going on in your brain is, I've got to hang on to every dollar, every customer, I've got to chase every deal. And counterintuitively, that's actually the worst possible thing you can do, because just like Sebastien said, if you do that, you're spreading yourself thin across so many different use cases, so many different customer profiles. What you really need to do is double down on where you add a ton of value. So I'd be thinking really hard about your ICP, who really, really gets value from your solution. And then secondly, what's your USP? How do you uniquely provide value to those folks in ways that other folks don't? And if you do those things well and you get obsessed with value delivery, you'll kind of be skating to where the puck is going to be rather than where it is right now. And what I mean by that is, if you are creating value for your customers, you will find ways to monetize that. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it comes back around. So if you look at your customer portfolio and you say, how can we, within the constraints of what our mission is, how can we add more value to these folks? The first thing that's going to happen is your churn is going to get way, way better, because all your existing customers are going to recognize this additional value, and they're not going to leave. They're going to recognize you as partners. The second thing that's going to happen is your net revenue retention is going to go through the roof, because you're going to get really, really good at cross-selling and upselling. And it's going to happen organically. You're not going to be going out to your customers and asking them to do you a favor by buying an additional product or buying additional seats. You're going to be creating so much value. You're just going to say, listen, we just need to take a little bit of this value that we've created back from you. And you got to think about their perspective too, right? This is a recession. They're not looking to make R&D investments. They're looking for operational efficiency. They're looking for ways that you can save them money or create real value. So I think it all comes back to get obsessed with value delivery. That's the pointy end of the spear. And if you do that well, and you do that in a really instrumented way, and you understand where are you connecting, which are the customers that are really finding value in the things that you do, that's where you get your new market development team pointed, right? That's where you point your marketing and your sales focus, is finding more folks that look just like the ones that you're seeing a lot of success with.
Yeah.
I love that, Michael. I just want to add one thing, because it kind of dawned on me as we were talking through this, but we're all in this together. If you're in a recession, so are your clients, and they're going to start to look to you for help around that. Your solution is a solution that they can use to not take advantage of, but stay alive and possibly improve their business during a recession. So, do that internal work of how does my solution help my clients get through these times? There is your next campaign. There is your
Absolutely.
upsell talk track right there. I said it earlier.
Absolutely.
For me, I think it's easy for me to do that because I am a consultant. The nature of what we do is more work for a lower cost, than a full-time employee. So it's easy for me to say, in a recession, the value that we provide is a fast and experienced outcome related to revenue operations. But find that answer for your own product or service offering. What do you do and what can you do for your clients that will help them get through the recession? Because then they'll just stick around and they'll keep paying you, obviously.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally.
So we're starting to get some interesting commentary from our audience here. So let's kind of go there for a moment. So both of you talked a little bit about, obsessing with value and focusing on existing customers, retaining those customers, and so on. Eric makes an interesting point, something that I've been thinking about as well as the founder CEO for our own business. When you're a company at, we're all startups, right? Here in this audience or in this panel, when you're thinking of this scale, can you really save your way to growth? Because ultimately, for a startup, it's all about how do you drive growth. So certainly focus on NRR and the existing install base is absolutely critical. I don't disagree with that at all. But is that sufficient? And should there be a different focus on the acquisition part of the funnel and the growth part of the funnel? So let's maybe start there. I'd love to hear how you would respond to Eric's perspective here.
I totally, the first thing when I read Eric's comment that really struck me is 100% agree. And also, you can't save your way to better revenue retention. Like, we've got to stop doing this thing where we just start chasing all of the fires. So that really speaks deeply. I absolutely agree that we can't save our way to growth. This is not the time to cut marketing or sales, because you still, again, if we go back to the two metrics that I'm looking at, it's net revenue retention, which, remember, part of that is upsell and cross-sell. And to do upsell and cross-sell, you got to have strong customer marketing, strong product marketing, and still strong sales. So absolutely. And, burn multiple, which is calculated off the denominator of net new ARR. So you've still got to be going and getting that new ARR. I think what's different for me in a recessionary period is you can't afford to try to create a new market. You can't afford to take big, unsubstantiated bets on where you want to be selling and where you want your product to be. You've got to stay really true to where you're delivering value. And so I really think it's this motion of understanding your customer, understanding where they get value, and then targeting and looking for more of those folks. And your best playground, if you want to do new market development, if you want to bring a new solution to market, what better place to do it than in your customer portfolio where you've already built a ton of trust? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to sit down with those folks and say, we're thinking about new ways to deliver value to you. Let's bring it together an advisory board. Everybody who's interested in this from across our portfolio, let's get you together. Let's have some deep conversations with our product team and really solve some new problems for you. For some folks, it'll work. For other folks, it doesn't. For the ones it does, now get your sales and marketing dollars pointed on finding more of those folks. And if you do it that way, you're going to be doing it with the backing of reference customers, case studies, real value delivered in market, partners who are giving you real-time feedback. So totally agree. This is not the time to cut sales and marketing, but it is a time to stop taking those huge Hail Mary passes at the companies we want to be. We just have to stay true to who we are today and then grow in small concentric rings from there.
Yeah. I think two very important points that I heard come through, Michael, in your commentary there. One, focus on your installed base does not necessarily mean that you can't continue to grow. You can find new avenues to create value for your current install base. And then second, companies at our scale, unlike, say, growth stage companies or public companies, which have a different challenge. If you've reached that stage as a business, you probably have some bloat, you probably have some multiple fires going on at the same time in terms of what's the next new thing you're going to go do. Now's not the time to put that out there. That doesn't mean that you can't continue to go find more customers and continue to invest in sales and marketing. So I think those are both important points to put out there. A focus on NRR does not imply that there is not a focus on new growth.
That's right.
And if anything, we've had this conversation. I add my 2 cents to this perspective, like internal conversations around, do we cut back on our ad budgets? Do we cut back on our marketing budgets? And what we are instead focusing on is how do we fine tune those? What's working? Let's continue to pour gas on it. And if something's not working, now's not the time to experiment with our dollars. Let's save those dollars to extend our runway. So that's kind of the way I've been thinking about it. Sebastien, anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, savings is a lever that you can pull to get to a goal, but it's not your goal. No investor, no stakeholder out there is going to be super proud that you saved a bunch of money this quarter. The reason that you save is to reach, some threshold, some milestone, some goal of yours. And to Eric's earlier point, if the only lever you pull is saving, you will not grow. So it can get you to maybe the step before growth, and it can get you in a good position so that you can grow. But there's no direct causation there, at least that I've noticed. And I think if you want to grow, you're going to have to spend in some aspect. It's just a matter of how much you spend and how efficient that dollar is and how many dollars you get back per dollar that you spend.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, if I could just take another 30 seconds on this, Aseem, because I think, I have like a mental playbook when it comes to these types of things. We've kind of talked all around it. For me, it's the first thing we talked about, which is cut. And I'm not talking about team here. I'm talking about ancillary noise that you don't need to be focused on. So I think you titrate down to the absolute essentials, cut your big unsubstantiated R&D bets that haven't paid off yet. And I think this is where really, really good financial analysis is key. So having this instrumented in a way that you can look backwards from profitability and understand what's working, what's not is absolutely key. So number one, cut. Number two, I think you create a culture of experimentation. And I don't want this to get lost when we're talking about not taking big bets. It's so important to still take those micro bets, right? Create a big, ambitious vision for where you want to be, and then make tiny little bets. I think this is a culture thing. This is about getting everybody in the company trying one little thing that might pay off or might not. And it's funny, Aseem, this is where we have worked together, Fresh and Immersa have worked together, is to instrument these micro bets, because they can be really expensive when they don't pay off. And you've got to know so fast, is it working or is it not? If it's working, we're going to go all in on it. If it's not working, then we're going to stop doing it and try something else. So I think this culture of micro experimentation is super, super important. And it comes at the expense of chasing these silver bullets, which are kind of the, one size fits all, or if we nail this, it's going to solve all our problems. So, that's a myth. Don't chase silver bullets, micro experiment, and make sure you've got that instrumented. And if you do that, I think you'll end up in a good spot.
Yep. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me shift gears now towards a little bit more on the marketing side, right? So, in a growth environment, a lot of the focus is, in fact, in a growth environment, rising tide will lift all boats, right? So the focus really is on revenue growth, and a lot of the marketing stories, the marketing messaging tends towards helping your customers grow and drive revenue for them. Talk to us about how your marketing strategies evolved. Like, what's the messaging? What's the message that you think resonates to your market? And your markets are different, so it's intentionally designed to extract that difference in opinion, difference in views as a question. So what are you doing different from the way that you message to your customers?
Should I go first, Michael?
Yeah, go for it. Sebastien, go for it.
Okay. I think for us, it is moving away from, to use the term bloat again, massive bloated consulting contracts. Moving away from, if you're going to bring on a central metric consultant, you don't need to commit for a year anymore. just put us onto one project, one micro bet, like Michael said, one thing that you're trying to accomplish. Let's prove whether or not this is worth it. And if it works, let's continue on together. I'm also working on separating pieces of our service offering into one-time, workshops, sessions, things that are more accessible, and kind of get the fires burning for our clients rather than give us all the money and we'll do all the work for you. You kind of have to be more flexible and understanding that these budgets are shrinking, but the outcomes are still out there, and still, we still want to hit those outcomes. And so, yeah, you're really just, like Sagar said, earning the right to renew. So coming in and, I'm trying to get this started. Maybe this is the day that it'll catch on, but we're trying something that we're calling services-led growth. I think product-led growth is, what everyone thinks is, the new bastion of kind of efficiency and revenue growth when it comes to revenue operations, specifically to SaaS. And we're trying to do the same with services. So you don't have to come in and buy the whole package. You can get what you need to get you to that next stage for yourself. And then I'm also trying to participate in more events where we're just giving out value. Because now is the time where you need a little extra helping hand. And as we've seen in this industry, at least, and what I've seen is that value comes back around. Gary Vaynerchuk's jab, right hook book, these are the jabs for me. Whereas when the investment kind of faucet turns back on and people are ready to scale, I'm betting that people will remember the compromises that we made on their behalf and the work that we did to fit into the infrastructure that they had at the time. So that's kind of what we're doing, is we're trying to meet our customers where they're at and make it easier to work with us.
That's so smart, Sebastien. I think that's really going to work for you guys. We did a similar thing at Ambition years ago, which was spinning up a professional services team, right? Our vision, right up here, outpaced our product, in the way to connect those things together was services. People bought into the vision, but they needed help using the products to get there. And so we created a services division. And I think if we shift our thinking, right, if you buy into the idea that basically your first year with any customer is a pilot, whether you frame it as a pilot or not, and then you really think about converting that customer after the first renewal, not after the first contract, all of that services stuff really just goes into customer acquisition costs in my mind. And I think it really is just helping folks go from where they are today to getting true value out of your product. It doesn't matter how, whether you have a services team or an onboarding team or a customer, it doesn't matter who does it. The point is you got to get folks getting value from the product. I think it really does come back to being obsessed with value delivery, time to value. I think about kind of value trajectory as the rate at which you're delivering new value over time. That's a pretty hard metric to instrument, but if you can find a way, I really encourage you to do it. We've got so much power now with product analytics to measure the things that people are doing in our products. And if we can correlate those things to value created, whether it's time saved, or revenue created, and you can look at that trajectory of value over time, that's just your opportunity to go back to your customers, present really strong ROIs, and then take back, 1%, 2%, 5% of that value as revenue. And that's a formula for growth that everybody will invest in.
Yeah. And then I would add one thing here is to lean on your partners and let them lean on you, especially if you are serving two parts of the same problem for the same client. Something early on in our kind of life cycle as a business, we started out and still are bootstrapped. So we couldn't afford a huge investment in sales and marketing. How do you bridge that gap? You reach out to partners. Aseem mentioned earlier, Immersa and Central Metric have a really strong relationship because we typically service similar clients trying to accomplish the same things. And so you can use your partners to access new segments of the market. Of course, make sure your partner is getting value too, because your partner is a stakeholder in this relationship. But there are ways that you can work with either partners, competitors, or ancillary solutions where both of you can improve your processes and the ways that you are solving problems for your clients.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So love that message in terms of lean on partners. We will definitely be doing that, Sebastien, and we'll be doing that for you, Michael. So now let me just acknowledge another comment here from Carver that actually raised two really interesting questions for me. He's calling out to Danica that an investment in an intelligence tool like Gong or Chorus better aligns sales with product and marketing. So first, I'm going to talk about the internal alignment. It's always important. No, you always want everybody rowing in the same direction. But in an environment like this, it becomes even more critical that everybody on the team, no matter which part of the function they represent or which part of the business they represent, they're all pulling in the same direction. So how do you guys go about doing that? So, and then I have a second part of this question around technology investments or data investments that help us make that happen. We'll come back to that next. So what are you doing different, Michael, from your lens in particular, in terms of driving internal alignment between the different functions?
We've taken a little bit of an extreme take here that I think is the right one. First, let me just say, everybody is still on the team, but we have dissolved our sales function. That's a little bit of a dramatic way of saying it, but what we've really done is we've moved from an outbound sales motion to an entirely product-led sales-assisted motion. So everybody on the sales team, rather than doing cold calling, rather than trying to find folks who have never heard of us before and trying to pitch value to them in a recessionary environment where folks are focused on controlling costs, like that's just not working. You're not picking up the phone and saying, yes, I'd like to spend some money on a solution that I've never heard of before. We're pointing all of that effort on the folks who are already in our sphere of influence, who already are looking for a kitchen display system, which is the product that we're talking about here. And we're trying to help them understand how this can solve their particular needs. So we're still picking up the phone, we're still sending emails, we're still setting up demos, but we're not doing it for folks that have never heard of us. We're trying to get really, really focused on the folks who are already interested in us, may have bought without any kind of proactive outreach, but who cares? We're just going to help them understand how our solution is going to deliver value to them, and just kind of impact our growth rate that way. So we're not right now, I mean, this is, like I said, it's a little bit of an extreme take. We're not focused on quota attainment. We're just focused on net new bookings, period. Doesn't matter if they're product-led or sales-led or sales-assisted. It's just net new bookings, period. And everybody in our growth org is getting comped off the overall growth number rather than individual quota attainment, so that we're trying to really drive this message of what are the micro bets we can take? How do we quickly execute and test them? And then how do we use the collective effort of all of these folks to just advance our funnel forward? Gotcha.
And so the next part of the question, based on Carver's comment, is, what, like, I would up level or generalize that question to say, what kind of technologies are the appropriate ones to invest in an environment like this? And maybe I'll, Sebastien, since you do advise your clients on a lot of these decisions, let's start with you. What advice are you offering your clients in today's world to say, here's a class of tools or technologies that you should continue to invest in because it helps you set up as a better business coming out of this environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think step one is to make sure that you don't already have that technology. There's countless cases of, oh, we need to buy tool X, and then upon further review, you already got something that does that. You're just not using it. So I think level one is to internally audit and make sure that all of the technology that you use today is performing the activities that you want and achieving the outcomes that you want. Once you do that, you'll have a good perspective of where the gaps are or where they aren't. I like to lead with requirements. So I don't think the question is, I don't think we're just trying to add tech for the sake of it. I think what we're doing is analyzing our entire process for gaps, which then become a list of requirements that we take to vendors. And until you have that list of requirements and until you've noticed those gaps, there's no point in talking to a vendor. At best, you're going to get sold on something that you won't need for several months. It's cutting time. So, do that level of cutting first before you increase the spend or the amount of technology that you're using. And I think kind of to the alignment question earlier, I wanted to add, obviously I'm a small agency, so alignment is super easy for us. There's only like 5 full-timers and a bunch of consultants. But what I've noticed in clients, prospects, partners, and kind of all across the industry is that they're moving away from the standard sales ops, marketing ops, CS ops breakdown of the functions. I've seen really interesting teams where there is a data team, a systems team, and an integration team, or an ops team per service offering, per product offering. And so there are creative ways that you can realign your internal team to actually get all the work done that you need to do, to run these micro bets, to identify the gaps in your process and evaluate new technology. But talk to them first. Ask your team what they need more time to work on, what keeps falling through the cracks on their day-to-day. And then again, you now have your list of requirements. But until you get there, then you're just going to be kind of throwing stuff at the wall and hoping for the best.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating, particularly your comment about sort of reorganizing the resources instead of the traditional functional areas, focusing on how do you bring data and process and integration around those areas to achieve the same outcome. Michael, what are your thoughts?
I agree with all that. I was also looking at the comments and really agree with what Sagar is saying there. Companies are so bad at buying software, and I think we all feel it, right? There's tech stack bloat. You don't get clear about what you need before you go out to market, and then you end up getting sold something you don't need. And that's bad both ways, because that's how we sell our solutions to poor fit customers who then end up distracting us from our mission with all of these different asks because they were never an ideal customer. They didn't fit our ICP in the first place. And so what Sagar said really struck home. As vendors, I think what we can do is we can be way better Sherpas along this path. We can help our customers buy the right software. And when it's not us, be honest with them about the fact that it's not us, hand them to a competitor and hope that that's reciprocated, because it truly will help us in the long run when we stay true to our mission. And so I think to do that, one of the things that leadership teams should be doing is being really, really clear about what is the mission, who is the ideal customer, and what are we trying to do here? I think a lot of times that can get lost.
Great. Look, I think the point about I think both of you made, which is what tools and technologies you already have, and do you really need something new here? We work with a lot of clients where we're helping to integrate across a lot of their different technologies and bring all the data in one place so we can help them figure out what to do with that information that they're collecting. I'll tell you that, I see the Excel syndrome everywhere. There's a billion users of Excel. 90% of them use 10% of the capability of Excel. And that's good enough for most of them. They don't need more than that. But you'd be surprised at what we uncover when we start digging into these different data sets on the types of tools and technologies and the overlapping data silos that kind of exist in different parts of the organization. And how do you actually bring it together to make meaning out of it, to make some sense out of it, to help drive the business? Okay, so let's drive towards close now. If I'm gonna have you sort of take the lead on both of you, if you could both wave a magic wand and get whatever you wanted in terms of technology or people or other kind of investment, even in this environment, what would you choose to invest in? So think about that for a moment. Let's see, as you kind of formulate your thoughts there, let's see what conversations going on here as well with the audience. For the audience, if you have any final questions for us, please definitely reach out to us. I do want you to know that we are very open here for conversations around anything to do with data, process, and technologies. We love having those discussions. So you can find us on Immersa.ai and set up some time with us at any point for a conversation about what we're working on and how we could potentially help you. Okay, back to Michael and Sebastien. Sebastien, why don't we go with you first this time? Tell us what you know, if you could wave a magic wand, what direction would you wave it in?
This is for my business, right?
Yes, it is for your business.
I would love a founder level marketer to join my business.
Well, you're talking to one, but I'm not ready to join your business.
Yeah, and we're not ready to pay for you. But yeah. So essentially, I am the founder level salesperson. My CEO is the founder level product / account management person, and we kind of need that third pillar essentially. But we're a bootstrap business, so I will have to do more selling in order to afford this founder level marketer.
Well,
so yeah, that's very personal.
How cool would it be if when we start promoting this, or somebody from the audience actually raises their hand and makes that wish come true? That would be pretty awesome. That would
My
be pretty
DMs
awesome.
are open.
You heard it here first. Okay, founder level marketer. That's what you're looking for. And maybe elaborate on that a little bit of, the why. Why is that important to your business today?
Yeah, well, because right now I think the sales and marketing functions are conflated under myself. And I find myself split between, am I bringing people to the party, or am I talking to individuals at the party to get them to come to the next party and buy the thing? And so it's really just an air cover sort of thing. These events like these, podcasts, sponsorships, partners, these are conversations that are helpful to my business, but they are not sales conversations. And so a kind of founder level marketer would allow me to and generate more sales related conversations, which allows our business to grow, gives us more revenue, allows us to invest in ourselves, and so on and so forth. I'm sure if my co-founder Kevin was here, he would say he needs a literal carbon copy of himself. And if I had to rank those right now, I would choose the carbon copy of my co-founder, and then I would go after that marketer.
Great. Thank you, Sebastien. Michael, go ahead.
So I think we lost Michael. Oh, you're back. Sorry.
Tooling capabilities. Oh, can you guys hear me? Yeah, sorry. Right now would be one, better revenue instrumentation to understand kind of backwards from revenue, what is working, what's not. The second is better product instrumentation. We've got a little bit, but not a lot. So to better understand what people are using and what is delivering value and what is not. And then the third is just A/B testing framework, so that we can really double down on this micro betting strategy and just try lots and lots of stuff and very quickly understand if it works or if it doesn't. And we've kind of, we're working on the third one. That's what Aseem and I have been working on together through our partnership. And we've got a great straw man for what that could be, but we need some better instrumentation upstream to get better use out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, all good points. And we of course the team here at Immersa loves working with you and the folks at Fresh Tech. Just the way you continue to challenge our thinking and guide us and the way that you're thinking about running the business helps us be a better partner to you and build a better product. Look, I absolutely love these conversations. We could go on for a long time, and have a really good time going through this. We are at the top of the hour. We will share this out through LinkedIn, through our website, through RevGenius. A huge shout out to our friends and partners at RevGenius for hosting us on their platform, and to both of the panelists here for being a good partner and being a good customer to us. And participating and sharing your thoughts so openly and freely today. And to the folks at Immersa and RevGenius who actually did a lot of the legwork to pull this event together. The audience, you're fantastic. Thank you for your participation and the questions you've raised today. We are going to continue this conversation online through this channel as well as through other channels. If you would like to be a part of it in some capacity, reach out to me. I'm available at Aseem at immersa.co. If you would like to nominate someone that you think would be a great conversationalist in this regard, again, reach out to me, and we would love to talk to you. All right, thanks everyone, and have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you soon online. Take care. Bye.
Later, y'all.